Hello, this is Zoltán here with another ARCHLine.XP webinar. Today it's all about detailing, how we get behind the scenes and how do we get down to the core of CAD. Let's take a look together. As always, I'm joined by my colleague, Mr. Illich Pap, our resident architect, and the person who is going to tell us more about the CAD functions of ARCHLine.
I try to.
So, what are we going to look at today?
Well, first things first, we will try to clear things up about how to handle levels, floors, the whole floor structure of ARCHLine and how they bound the different structures together and how you can create something out of a conceptual, take to a higher detail, literally, you know, create the layers and understanding how those things that are actually ready-made available in the software, how you can use those features and how you can create your own structure and how you can detail the structures. And then we will also focus on how to create, we call them unlinked copies of the original drawings, because whenever you create something in ARCHLine, you will always create dynamic drawings, but there is a point when you likely would like to create a detached, unlinked version of that drawing, which can be handled as a classic 2D drawing. And then we will also talk about some of the documentation part, which is deeply connected to detailing and how to, you know, just actually show the details and different sections of the same content all over a larger plot layout, for example.
So to sum up, there's going to be a lot of automated things that we are going to tell you about what ARCHLine does, and we also tell you how to fine-tune the things, the data that ARCHLine gives you. So without further ado, let's dig in and let's see what we have here. So the first thing, as you said, what we are going to talk about is the theory behind it.
Yeah.
So how layers come together, how structural elements are handled in ARCHLine. Can you tell us more about what we're going to look at?
We have this example. We used it in a previous episode, but now I will go deeper into the details and I will show an example how to create such details and why and how they are handled this way, and how you can do a detailed wall slab connection. And I will also show a few things about the slabs, foundation, and things like that. So for this reason, I have created I usually call this a conceptual model.
Like a simplified
because,
the same thing.
well, many times I also do start like this. I don't know exactly what sort of, I have an idea, but I don't know exactly, and I don't want to worry about what sort of structure I would like to use at the end. I just really literally would like to sketch things as fast as possible. So I'm using one-layered walls, one-layered slabs and things like that. And when I do that, they tend to connect like this. They are just literally standing on top of each other, and they just make a group of structure which generates the building itself, and then I have the rooms and everything else, so I can see clearly the surfaces and I can create elevations and everything else. Now, when I'm over that and I know that this job is worth to go deeper, and then I would like to discuss with the clients and set up the details, the layers and things like that, then that's the point when I either select one of my existing styles, I will cover that in a few seconds, or I just start detailing the existing one. So let's see first this. What happens when I already have a slab? For example, let's start with the slab. I already have a slab which has only one layer, and I would like to add more layers and create the proper connection between the...
Slight detour here.
Yeah.
Is this something that you do on a model level or on a documentational level?
Well, this can be both. Now I will show you how you can detail structure literally in the 3D. So I will literally create the model of that multi-layered slab. But at the end you will see that you don't have to always do that if you don't want to or you're not used to do. In that case, you will be able to set up details on the 2D level only if you prefer that. We will cover that in a few times 10 minutes. So, well, there is this slab here. Now, this slab, I'm modifying it in the 3D, but it's not making any sort of difference. I can make it in the 2D as well. Because that's the same thing. So now I'm in the slab properties, and I just click on the slab layers, and now I know I will just make a very, very simple example. I will just add 2 more layers to this slab. Now I have one layer, which is a 30 centimeter thick layer, which is reinforced concrete. If I'm adding up other layers, the software is actually just cloning the existing one. So now this time I would end up with a nearly 1 meter thick layer, which is obviously not what I want. So I just, you know, customize the layer thicknesses. There will be one with 10 centimeters. This will be the core layer. This will be the structural layer. So this will be 20 centimeters. This will be literally really reinforced concrete. And there will be something, let's just make it simple. This will be plaster, okay? So that's something like a very thin layer at the bottom of this whole thing. So how to distinguish them? Now, as you can see, these are all having the same material. And if I would create a section, which we will cover pretty soon, they would appear as one thick 31 centimeter wide layer. So if I would like to distinguish them, first things first, of course, I need to create and add another material. So let's start with the top material. This should be, let's just change it to another type of concrete. So I can see it clearly in the 3D, and this will make change in the section as well. There is this reinforced concrete. I'm fine with that, and this should be. Let's go with plaster. Okay, let's go with the plaster. Okay, let's
just pick something from the material library and.
Well,
I think bright plaster.
Bright plaster, that's the one. Okay, so I'm having these 3 layers. There is also a name field here, and this is good because you could use these. These are more descriptive than the material name. Now the material name is bright plaster or something like that, but I can type a real maker name or something like that, because this is what I will see at the end in the quantity takeoffs and the schedules and things like that. So I can add those details, but on the other hand, there is one last thing at the end of this row. If this would be a layer, sometimes walls have cavity layers, slab also could have, and you know, the roof. So in that case, if that's a cavity layer, you can just simply disable the 3D, so you will have this see-through, non-visible layer. So yeah, this time this is reinforced concrete, so I just keep it, but this is also a way to distinguish things. And well, there is, if as you can see, there is the top and the bottom part, so this helps you orientate yourself how you create that. And there is one another indicator here, this arrow here, and this means
the core layer?
That this is the displayed layer, which is many times the core layer, but it doesn't have to be. So I just, you know, indicate that, because actually it's called a visible layer because you can actually modify structure in ARCHLine layer by layer. And if you do that, let's just imagine you create a hole in this layer, but not on the rest. So you can decide whether you would like to see that contour appearing on your floor plan or not, either just by simply setting up it here, or, you know, just making different other changes. But this is the best way to determine which layer contour is visible on the floor plan. So I will go with this one. And well, the rest is, I think, they speak for themselves. Yeah, you can just reorganize the content, and you can erase existing layers, and you can even flip the layer order if you forgot to create them in the proper order. So I'm just creating it by pressing OK. And now I have this layer, I mean this slab with 3 layers, and I can also store it in my own style. And this is where I connect to what I told before. Now I already have a few styles, either because the ARCHLine.XP installed themselves by factory default, or I can also create my own styles. Styles and creation and handling of styles we already covered before. So I'm just hinting here that there's a way to store all these details into your style by simply creating a new style here.
Meanwhile, I see a question. What about the hatches of each component of slab in 2D section? We are going to talk about that later.
Yeah, don't worry.
But that's something that we plan to cover. So.
Yeah, okay, so this is how it goes. I already have this slab. Let's just go and find, okay, now I see these layers, but the connection between these two is not correct.
Not good, because the wall should touch the second layer, right? So the first layer should be cut. Is that something that you have to do manually, or how does it work?
You can do it manually. Sometimes you do it manually because the connection is kind of a custom connection, not set up by rules. But now I just would like to determine as many things by setting up rules, as many as I could do. So I just go to the settings of this wall as well, and let's just figure out what should I do. First things first, this wall should not start at the top of this floor surface. It should start from the top of the structure, top of the core structure. So I should change this elevation. Now I can measure this and use that value here.
Yes, or you could offset and push it downwards, or
that's fine. You can do that, or you can use the built-in mechanism of ARCHLine, which is tailored to do this for you. So let's just go back a little bit before I just change this value here, and let's just talk about how the floor structure builds up, because this is where it all comes together. Now I have this floor structure. And now we are on the ground floor. This is the ground floor, actually. So let's see how the ground floor looks like and how it connects to other levels. Now I have a basement, a ground floor, a first floor, and a flat roof. And these are all set to the same height. I can change it, and then if I set settings up well, or I just use the default settings of ARCHLine, because that's how ARCHLine also set up, I will be able to set up a flexible design. And when I change the height of the design, because we went to the site survey and we realized that we made a mistake by, I don't know, 10 centimeters, so we need to shrink the whole level, then I just have to set up one value here, and the rest will be automatically aligned if I do it this way. So just to make you understand, you don't have to change these settings project by project. These are set for your convenience, and you don't have to change them. But if we talk about this, you will understand, and if you would like to go deeper into the settings, you will be able to do that. So now what happens here? Now there's a ground floor from 0 to 3. That's from here to here. So there is an option, and it's called top of structure. And as you can see, it's here and here. It's each and every level have.
So that's the top of the structural level, in case the middle layer of the slab.
Yeah, well, actually, this is where the core layers should fall to. Like the main layer, the core layer of the wall, should stand on this top of the structure. So that's where I know the top of structure is on this level, because you can change it from level to level. On this level, it is minus 10 centimeters. I'm fine with that. And actually, I could set up different settings for each and every layer. As you can see, so the finished floor is changing from level to level.
level to level.
Yeah. So it's giving you a generic settings, which is the majority for that floor, and then you can go and, for example, sometimes in the bathroom there's a different layer structure, a little bit different level than the rest of the apartment, or something like this, so you can handle that custom by custom. But let's say I have this here, and that's fine. It still not do anything because I did not set up the wall properly. So now I have two options. Either I just type minus 0.1. I will land on the proper level, but this won't follow the changes. When ARCHLine follows the changes, it happens this way. You can have structures. You can turn existing structures manually to onset. They are by default. They are all set. I just made this structure manually to onset to show you how this works. So what I do now, I just set it back how it was. It was top of structure 0. So that means it will start from the same level where the top of the slab core finish is. So let's just go and say okay and okay.
So what you did now is that you tied the bottom of the wall to the core layer.
Yeah,
but it's still, it looks like it's being pushed in, but there's still like double.
Well, this is only a matter of rebuilding the 3D. When I rebuild the 3D, the connections become correct. They were just overlapping temporarily. But now they are occupying their own space, and they are proper, and the layer is at where it should be. So this way you can set up the starting point of the level, either just literally typing the value or bounding it to a value of the level. This is actually the default. Whenever you start doing anything in ARCHLine, they are all bound to the levels. And then you can actually either choose to literally type the height, or you can also just use the default setting. This is by default, it was not unset. I made it manually to unset. It was top of structure, but as you can see, the software is wise enough to understand that, okay, this should be the following top of structure, but actually, well, I was wrong. This should be the bottom of structure.
But the point is that the software already tells you that it should be the floor above it.
So this sort of connection will be automatically stitched together for you. You don't have to, manually stitch these layers together. So let's say, okay, I'm done with that. But actually, the full height is 2.8, but the wall height visible from inside will be only 2.7 because that's the clear visible height. So this is how I can set this up. And again, this is only a one-layer wall structure. But if I go here and I add another layer, let's just do that. Let's just click here.
Again, you are copying the existing layers.
So I'm copying that, and then let's say, well, this should be the external should be, I don't know, 8 centimeter for insulation. This should be thicker or something like that, but I'm just changing it. And this is where one part of the documentation issue comes in to be solved. How this layer is managed in the 2D drawings. This layer is cloning its fill pattern from the previous one, but you can change it and you can say that, okay, let's just select a different pattern, and this should be something like a thermal insulation. I'm fine with that, okay? And then it looks different.
I see.
But this does not necessarily mean that this will look exactly the same in the section. That's handled, and it's intentionally handled two different ways, which you can make join, and you can make them equal, but you can also distinguish. Some countries need different settings from the 2D on the floor plan and the 2D on the section. So this is only for the 2D here, and I also changed the material. Let's just change that to thermal insulation. I think I have one here. You see, I changed it, but it didn't change anything here. So these will have no effect here on the 2D. Okay. It will have an effect on the section. Okay, so now I have this, and in this case, just to again deeply understanding how I am doing this, when I created this drawing, I created, just as most of the architects would do, I created it with its outer contour. You can change this to the core layer or something like that. I usually create it by drawing the outer contour because that's usually something that I have to stick to. And whenever I make changes, I should not make my building bigger than the expected size. So that's why I drew it like that, and that's where you can see the reference line. And whenever you add the layer, it will just move inward, so you will lose space from the interior, which can be, again, I just really need to stress out that this can be changed as well. So let's just go to the details, because I would like to make this layer overhang, so it should cover the whole thing as it is covering it here. So let's just go here.
Again, you are going to play around with the binding rules, right?
Yeah.
So you can bind things on a layer level.
Yeah.
Not only the whole wall can be bound to bottom and upper parts, but also the individual layers.
And as you can see, I can change these sort of connections from layer to layer. I can again just simply go here and say that the base offset, which is the bottom, should be, I don't know, minus something. I just literally type the value and then the software uses that. Or I can go here, edit that value, and set something here. Like usually, well, I have a few options here. I can stitch it to the top of structure, the bottom of structure. Sometimes, or in many cases, I use the ledge, because this is a third option which I can freely control from level to level. So I just use the ledge option here. And I don't use any sort of offset, because the offset will be set in the level structure. So I just say OK, OK, and OK. And we will see some change happening. I need to update the 3D, of course. And why is that happening here? It's in the settings of the floor structure. So let's just go here.
Because that's where you define where the ledge actually is. So we see that it's minus 55 centimeters.
Yeah, so actually you can see it's here, it's appearing here. And when I modify it, let's say it was not correct, I forgot to set it up, So I need to change that. Sorry, it should be 35. That's what I wanted to say. Okay, so it's 20 centimeters smaller. So I just say okay. Then the software updates that, and if I already create the whole building with the same setting, the whole building is updated now on this level.
So this is not something that you have to update manually for every single wall.
Yeah. So that's why ARCHLine is set to be like this by default. You can freely edit any part, and you want, if you don't want to handle this sort of thing, you don't have to. You just type the values, and you will be fine with those things. But by default, the software is creating structures bound to level variables, we call them. And then whenever you need to update the whole building, just imagine hundreds of walls to be updated manually simply because you just did not make this change, so you don't have to. ARCHLine is automatically making this change, and then whenever you update a large building, ARCHLine is able to respond to that change on the whole level of the building.
Perfect. So how do you get documentation out of this?
Okay, so I think this is the point where we can talk about how the
materials and hatches.
How the hatches appear, because we already saw how the hatches appear on the 2D level, and there is one another thing that I would like to talk about, and that is, before we move on to this step, and that is which we call the layer
function.
The layer function. The layer function, now in this case it is set to very low. Now if I would like to make sure that the core layer is always finding the other core layer, let's just imagine this sort of connection.
It's like a T connection.
Like a T connection. So I don't want the connection to be broken up by any sort of third or fourth layer. I just want these two layers to meet in the junction. I need to set them to a higher level. There's actually a setting which is the strongest setting for core layer. You can tell that this is a core layer. They must always be connected. And in this case, you won't end up with strange connections. Okay, so this is all about the 2D, I mean all about the floor plan. And how about the section? Now the section, let's just talk about how to create a section first. We already covered that, but I think it's wise to refresh that. So there is the documentation and there is the section. I just simply start that, and to be able to see the hatch on the section, I need to enable this option. Let's
also
just...
level lines, something that we don't need, but just generate it.
Okay, that's, so we will see how to disable and enable things if you don't want to see some of those. So let's just create a section here. Just look at this. I only create the section from here to here. When I click on yes, by default the software will create an infinite section plane. So I see the other part also intersected. This is cool because this is how it's meant to be, but you can control this as well. So if you go back to the settings and you change the properties of this section, you can find that part which is for the partial section view. So if you enable that option and you tell OK, update that, yeah, then you will see only that specific part. And you can even enable or disable other things, like for example, now I don't want to see these level lines. So in that case, I again go back to the settings, properties, and then I go and find that this is called the level annotation lines. So I just disable that. And as you can see, there are other options, like you can also set up a zero depth section, crop region, and all sort of other things, which you already covered in other webinars. But now I'm fine with all of these, so I just hit OK, and yeah. And then now I have kind of a partial section view of the whole drawing, which I already created.
Just one thing, because I'm pretty sure that you are going to talk about this later on, but these sections are still in living connection with the model itself.
Yes, that's right. So if you select something, you can see that that's a window. You can actually go to the settings and you can change it on the section as well, of course.
The point being that this is not the part where you would actually do documentation. So if you want to add additional details or drawing, that's not the part where you do it. We'll talk about that as well, how to do it. This is the main reason why we pull this up is to talk about material settings and hatches.
Yeah. So let's see what we have here. Actually, let's just talk about the slab. The wall looks cool. Yes. That's fine. There is a hatch here and the thermal insulation here. I forgot to set this up, or I didn't know I should set this up. How this hatch can be changed for the core layer of this slab if I didn't do that before. So let's just go here. Let's find what's that. I go to the slab layers, and that's actually the reinforced concrete. And now you can go to the settings of the material itself, And the material has its own, not just the physical properties or appearance, which you mainly handle when you create visuals, but there is also a setting for the hatch in 3D, this I will cover soon, and there is a hatch on section, and this is what I need. Now, it looks like that on the section because it is set to look like that.
A certain hatch pattern.
A certain hatch pattern. But if I just would like to change it to something else, I can either go there and find something which fits better, for example, this here, or something else, like let's just go here, and I have something that I like to use that's an ISO hatch for the reinforced concrete. I can even create my own patterns. So let's just go with this. I think that's fine. The color is also fine. That should be black.
We can always fine-tune that, but...
And then let's say, okay. So when I do that, and I just close these things up, and if I use this material all around, it won't only be updated here when I choose to update this section, but it will be also updated everywhere else.
Yes, that's a quick good disclaimer that this is not only like a localized change, but also a global one, because now we are changing a material setting which is in our object library.
Yeah.
So this is going to be changed everywhere where this thing is present.
And I think there is one other thing which I did not mention when we created this whole sort of structure, and it's the reason why this connection looks okay. And the reason behind that, as you can see, the slab is created with the outer contour, and it's quite obvious here. But still, the structure connects properly, and the reason behind that, there is a built-in priority order in the software which can be fine-tuned. But the priority order tells the software that if a wall finds a slab, the wall should be the winner. It should be the one keeping its own generated shape, and it should cut into the slab. So this way, just imagine you have partition walls that are running through this whole building, and you don't have to create those, connections and things. They're automatically solved just because of this.
What about the connection between roofs and other parts?
Well,
they work similarly?
Yeah, that's something similar. Let's just talk about the roof a little bit, just as you mentioned.
Without showing in much detail that they also have layers that you can work with.
Yeah, okay. So, but actually, the roof is an interesting item because it has its own structure, which sometimes it's very difficult to talk about as a layer because they're not layers. But it also has a layered structure, definitely layered structure, which is usually the thermal insulation, some sort of cavity layers, literal layers in it, and actually sometimes the tiling is also thought of as a layer. So this is something that you can build up here, and as you can see, this totally looks the same as what you saw in case of building up a slab layer system. This works the same way. You have the material setting, and the material setting controls how it looks like in the section. There is a thickness, and there is one big difference here, and that's the ending of that layer, because the roof is mostly slanted, so you need to determine whether the ending is horizontal and angled or something different. And of course, if there is a cavity, you can still handle that the same way here at the end of this whole setting dialog. So this is how you can set up a roof setting, and then when you make the intersection, and if these structure they find each other, they will make the connection. And we will cover soon, if you would like to fine tweak it but you don't want to model that, then there is also a solution to that.
How about elevations? And the reason I'm asking that is because on elevations you sometimes want to show the texture, right?
Yeah.
But the thing that you have set up before is the texture and hatches on sections.
Yeah.
Are there any differences?
Yes. Well, let's just load the following project. I have prepared the other project, which is actually an idea of what you can do with the sections. So you will see how it was further progressed, how this sort of section was further detailed in a real building. And then this building will be a good example to show you how to create the elevations as well. So there is a 2D section drawing. As you can see here, everything is already detailed. The 2D is also detailed. We will talk about these sort of things. And what we can see here is the section. And the section features all the hatchings, And you know, there are already other details which we'll cover soon. We already covered how to create serial dimensions, but I will show you again, so you will find how to create that. But this is already kind of finalized section. Now this is where we could talk about how to create something like this, an elevation drawing. What's the difference between that and the other thing? So now I actually go here, and in this project navigator there is actually a dedicated tool to generate the elevations. And I think now I will create the north elevation. Yeah, let's just do that, which automatically generates a view of the 3D model which appears here behind. Now this is still 3D, even though it looks like 2D, but this still features the original window, the original slab. You can actually see it appears there. So when you modify this with the settings, you actually modify the original item. So that's not a drawing, that's still the model. It's a view to the model, a specific view, an elevation view. So how to control what happens here, how to control what we see here. You can actually set up a different sort of view, not just a linear drawing, but something which resembles more to an elevation view than to a line drawing. And this you can set up by changing the shadow or shading settings as well. So you can actually add some elevation shadow. Let's just start here because that's what I want, an elevation shadow, and it's controlled by this setting here. And I can set up a shaded with texture view, which is in this specific case, this literally means that the texture will appear as a line drawing of that material. Mm-hmm. So let's just go with this, okay? So the software calculates this shadow. If you saw our webinar about how to create shadow analysis and things like that, you saw this happening. So now we have this elevation view. And as you can see,
connection with the model, right?
Yeah, this is still the model. You can see the window has its left and right settings and things like that. Mm-hmm. You can even change the size of this and update the elevation view. And what I'm talking about is this here. Why this pattern looks like this, even though the model features a different sort of material. And it's this, in this case, by the maker, it was intentionally created like this, because this is something that you can control through the material. It's always controlled through the material. Let's just find this material. This material is it's a stone, a limestone
cladding. Yes,
cladding. Yeah. So let's just go to the settings. Let's just double click on it to go to the details. And as you can see, there was this physical properties, the appearance, and there is this hatch in 3D. And this is what controls what we'll see. As you can see, the hatch is a brick pattern, and that's it here.
So this has nothing to do with the hatch on section. This is a different setting.
Yeah.
So one material could have several representations set up.
Yeah, yeah.
One for sections, one for elevations, and
just as many times, just as you imagine, we talked about the thermal insulation. The thermal insulation, at least in my country, it should be just visualized by this wavy line. But on the elevation, if it's somehow visible, it should be something like a dotted pattern,
yes,
or something like that. And this is the same with this pattern. Perhaps this limestone cladding should have a very different to the hatching on the 2D level. I mean on the real drawing if it's intersected, and on the section, and in the elevation. This is how you can make them different, and this is also where you can make them similar just by changing these settings. Okay, let's just go with this so we understand why this pattern looks like that. And also I would like to show you another example for how you can control this. Let's just go here. As you can see, there is this pattern. Let's just understand why it looks like that. Go to the material settings.
So the material settings are set up that way.
So that's a stone wall. Let's just go to the details. That stone wall has a hatch in 3D, which is a rock wall. That's fine if I would like to see that. But for example, sometimes I just don't want to see these surface features appearing on my elevation because they just draw the attention to someplace else where I want to. So I just either make it dimmer or I just simply disable that. And I say, okay, this time I don't want to see that. And then when I update the 3D, let's just update the whole 3D. There's this 2D. And then from the 2D, I update the 3D. So it regenerates all the dynamic drawings. And then when you see that here, now this stone pattern disappeared because I told so.
Okay, up until to this point, everything has been in connection with the model itself, but this is the part where we unlink the drawings. Why would we unlink drawings from the model?
Well, you can add 2D details to a 3D drawing, but sometimes you just don't want to do that, because if you break the 3D somehow, or you just change the 3D somehow, the 2D addition won't make any sense. So this is where, or another reason to this could be that you don't want to do that because you don't have the time to, you don't have the knowledge to do, or any sort of other reasons. Sometimes the people just simply say that, well, I don't know how to do that. I know very well how to draft something in 2D, but I don't know how to do this in a BIM software. So there is always a connection to what you already know. And this time we would like to show you how to turn this dynamic content into a line drawing, which you can handle just as other 2D drawings you would handle. So just in that case, you just select that content that is generated, and then you just control copy that. You should always set up a reference point, which is this point now. It's not that important now which point I clicked. It's just that will be the the pickup point of that drawing, and this is where I can just set it up to place someplace else. And the trick behind unlinking copies of the original drawing is that you should have, and you always obviously have, a 2D drawing.
For example, we are now going to use the floor plan
on this one. I will show you a much better approach, but to understand the physics behind, this is how it works. You just, copy paste, and I just place it here, and it's identical to the original one. The difference between this and that is that when I zoom in here and I select this, this is a door, and when I do the same thing here, this is a polyline. And with the polyline, I can do even things that I cannot do here. I cannot erase this line because that's part of the model. But I can do that here by just simply using this. This is a tool which I like a lot, and which allows me to just erase parts of the drawing. So this way you can make changes that would otherwise not be possible other than modeling it. Sometimes, if there is this, there is an old building, an archaic building in the city center, and I have to add some sort of statue or figure or something like that. I don't want to model that.
Don't want to.
Perhaps I don't even have the model for that, but I can clearly create a drawing.
You mentioned that, because modeling things in 3D takes time and it takes processing power. So if you don't need that detail to be featured in 3D, you might just want to draw it in 2D. Or better yet, use existing groups or external blocks from other libraries.
Yeah.
That's very.
So this way you can literally modify this in any sort of way. You can remove, you can add things, just the way your project needs to. But remember, this drawing is already a detached and unlinked copy of the original dynamic content. The original dynamic content will be updated, but this unlinked copy, when you unlink it, when you make this approach, it won't be in any sort of connection already to the rest of the drawings, and this is where I would like to talk a little bit more about how to organize this much better than this is it now.
Perfect. So how would you do that?
Well, now what you see here, this is I would say this is a bad approach when you use ARCHLine to just fill the whole drawing with all sort of connecting drawings. Much better if you create dedicated drawings for that. Now this is obviously an elevation drawing which is in connection with the 2D, but it looks like I'm already creating the print view, but I'm not doing that already. So how to solve this? I just cut it. I just use Ctrl X to cut it away. And then to organize this better, I would recommend you to create a new 2D drawing. And this should be called, for example, elevations. And I usually highlight this to be 2D. So this tells me this is the kind of the unlinked elevations, okay? So here I just paste this elevation which I already have, and I start detailing, I start adding the, which we will cover in a second, the rest of the, I don't know, groups and annotations and things like that.
Is there a way to have multiple, I don't know, pages to this drawing?
Yes. Let's just quickly create another elevation, and this will be, I think I will just try to go with something like the west elevation. Yeah, let's just do that. So the software generates that. You know, I can detail it the same way. I just simply make a copy, Ctrl copy, and then now I just go back and find that original drawing which I created for this specific reason, and that was the 2D unlinked elevations. So the 2D unlinked elevations, if I just copy paste it here, I would end up with the same thing, just in case of this 2D. So I don't have pages yet, but actually, as this is a 2D drawing, this has its own floor system, which I can use as pages. So I just name it as, what was that? This was the north.
Yes, that was north elevation.
Elevation.
It was west, I think.
And let's just name this as west elevation. Okay, I'm fine with that. Let's just say okay. And then I just jump to the west elevation. I'm just, you know, using the page up, page down button, which we covered previously. So I just paste it here, and then I have that over there. So now when I flip and change between the pages, the levels, these are now handled as pages, and I can just, you know, do whatever I want with those. So let's talk
Going
about
back to
the
detailing. So what kind of details can you give this drawing?
Yeah.
Obviously, you already talked about how to delete lines, but what else can you add to it?
Well, there are many things we could do with this, but I just would like to highlight things that I hope will show the most of the things that you all do with your drawings. First things first, there are annotations and other parts which you can either handle by using the drafting tools, or the dimension, or the documentation. So, and actually there is a few in the edit part. Let's just start with this. So for example, if I would like to edit the existing content, there is a tool which is used a lot, and this is either the delete part or these here, the chamfer and fillet. I use them a lot. For example, the delete part, just as I mentioned, this is actually the same like this here. You can just go there and find and erase all sort of unnecessary details that you didn't want to end up with, but somehow you ended up, but because you have not set them up properly before or something. You just, you know, cleared things up the way you want. And there is also this fillet tool, for example. I forgot, or I didn't have the effort to create nice rounded downspouts or something like that. So now I'm on the 2D level, I'm detailing that. So I'm just setting up a round off value. Let's just make that, I know it should be, I'm working in meters now, so let's just make that 0.1, for example. It's 10 centimeters. So 100 millimeters. So I just click here and here. So now it's round off.
Yes.
So now I can
be playing with the hatches and everything to fill up that nicely. But this is the idea. This is how you would change the drawing line by line. What about explanation and text and arrowheads? Well,
text is very simple. You can find that in drafting. Text is also a very rich tool. You can even set up a texting table, which is useful when you would like to create something like, you know, detailing for layers. I will just quickly show you that tool as well. But let's just place first a text like this is, I don't know, this was the north elevation. Let's just give it a title. Which now I will show you this approach, which I use a lot. But you can actually add text and other sort of annotations and things like that at the documentation level when you create the layouts. I used to create this in this way because then I already see the drawing as it will be kind of printed when I prepare the layout. So let's just say okay. And well, let's just place the title here, and then I can add another text and things like that.
Arrowheads and annotations?
Well, the arrowheads, these are things that you can find in the dimension. I mean, these are kind of the labels that you are talking about. Now, this label should be something like, let's just make this, I think, let's make it a maker, and it's a roof, for example, which I would like to point to. So in this case, you need to set the thing that you would like to set a reference to. And you can set up the text, and then you can set up as many breakpoints as you would like to. And then when you are finished, you can actually set up another one and place that also. Also, you can go to the settings, and you can, you know, change the dimension, and you can actually add multiple leaders. So you can tell the software, okay, there is another thing, and this is also something like that, and then the software handles that way. So this way you can add more breakpoints. You don't have to, you know, just create any sort of other things. What I usually also use is the 2D groups, and sometimes I either use the polyline or the line to create arrows. There are default settings, built-in settings for for example, there is this thing called the dashed polyline, which is useful when I would like to, just highlight a part, because that will be a detail or something like that. As you can see, it appears with the dashed line. But also I can set it up by just simply having a broken line indicator, which is, I don't know, pointing from one direction to another, and then ends up with a, indicator.
What about the explanatory tags? Things that I think there are also groups, but let's say numbers, if you want to number the openings, for instance.
Well, as this is an elevation, it's wise to create some numbering for the colorings or something like that. So in that case, I go to the design center. There is the home of this design center, and I go to the groups, and there are built-in signs, which I can also create my own signs. So I just go to the signs and use there are also arrows, which I just would like to point that these arrows are also handled in the settings, and you can use these for entrance arrows or something like that. And also you can go to the consignation signs or the circle signs. There is something called the square signs. I will just go with this because as you can see, this is good for just indicating that this is a specific color here, and this is, I make a mistake here because they are obviously different. And there is also something like this here, and this should be this one, and so on. So I'm just setting these things up. These are actually groups. So what happens if I make a mistake? I can obviously change this to something else, or I can just go here. Groups are specific that if they contain a text, you can go and find this local menu, and you don't have to explode the group. This is a logical step for those who already understand the group system.
You don't have to do that.
You don't have to do that because there is a dedicated tool to edit the text in group. And if you have multiple text, those will be listed here. Now I can see that this is number 0. I just change it to number, I think 1 was not used. So I just use this one. So there is number 1, 0, and 3, and I can use any sort of other.
Question number 1 is deleting part of the hatch pattern.
Yeah.
Why is that, and how can you amend that?
Well, this is happening. Let me show you another example. This is happening for the same reason. This will happen, and in this case, you will understand why it's useful. For, let's say, okay, that was number 3. So number 3 should be inside this area. So this indicates number 3 will be referenced as glass surface or something like that. So I'm just clicking here, and see, now it's clear and visible and easy to understand. And the same reason behind this, and what you can see here, is to make things easier to understand, and those are holes in the hatching. So you can just click here, find the hole command, and delete the hole. And in that case, it will be cleared up.
So and you can do the same thing.
So if I just do the same thing quickly here, that's the same thing. Edit, that's a group. Let's just go here. This is the hatch here, and hole, and delete all holes, so I don't have any holes. But sometimes this ends up with the drawing, which is more difficult to understand, because now the hatch is covering the content. It's in front of the group.
Order, maybe.
So you can actually change the drawing order. There is this, each and every item has its own drawing order, so you can just make it stronger in order than the other one, so it always appears on top of the other one, so it's easier to understand.
So these are the basic detailing features.
Yeah.
What about using existing details? Because you might have some things from manufacturer libraries. This happens all the time, that you have existing DWG or DXF drawings.
Yeah.
You need to know how to use them, for documentation, add them to a library maybe. So how does that work?
Okay, so let's just add one of those. We already have a few downloaded from a manufacturer's website. So to understand how you can create 2D details and how you can reference them and how you can import them into your drawings and to create something like this out of them. So those are, in our case, those are DWG files. So what we will do, we will just go to the file and import DWG, but I actually already have that folder opened on this here. And sorry, it appears.
Yes, it should be appearing again.
It appears here. So this was this drawing that I used before. You cannot see it on the screen now, but I'm dragging here. It's from the the file manager.
When it opens up, you have to decide on the AutoCAD unit interpretation.
We already talked about that. You can import it, and the first thing that you do once you open the DWG file to check the size, and if it's not correct, you can re-import it or you can rescale that. Now we already imported it, so we know the scaling is 1:100. So when I do that, I just say okay. And now I have this drawing here. It appears as next to this one. So it's obviously large. I can rescale that. But the whole point for this is that this is kind of a drawing that I can customize. I can add hatchings. I can just remove parts, or I can just shrink it, make a copy, and paste it into my drawing and stitch it together with my own
Please show
drawings.
us two examples. One is that how do you add a customized hatch pattern to it, and the other one is how you make this into a library element for later use. So you don't have to like manually drag them in every time, but you can add it to your library.
Okay, so well, let's just make a few changes. I just don't need this and this, for example, and then I just would like to add my custom hatch. At the bottom, this should be something like that should be soil, for example. And then I just select that. This part should be referenced as a soil, and well, the pattern is too dense.
So what do you do then?
So I just change the density to something.
But don't forget that now you are not changing a global setting, right?
No,
so
not at
you
all.
are just changing things on this individual level.
Yeah, so I'm fine with this. So if I would like to save this as my own custom detail, or I can do the same with this. I can just select this part and turn it into a 2D group. Let me just also show you that. I just copied this part with the hatchings and things like that. Just zoom in, and I would like to select this, and this. So I just control copy, and this actually is something similar to this, just in smaller, and it's like that. So I can just remove parts and just save this as a detail. Okay, so how to save it for future use? I just select that and go to the group, and instead of creating a local group, which is also fine if you just don't want to handle them line by line, you just select that, Control G, that's for creating a local group, and then you can handle it, and then you can just rotate it, move it, transform it the way you want, and then you can still explode it back. But this won't save it as a library item. You won't find them with the name. So if you would like to do that, you just go and save a group into a library, and then you set up all those reference points that you would like to use when you would like to place, and then you can name it and you can save it in a category, and then it will just fall into the
So that's how you use external drawings. One thing regarding that, what about external reference if you want to use that?
Well, if you work together with other professionals working on perhaps details, because that's their own profession to set up the plumbings and things like that, all those details, you don't have to import the drawing, and then when they make changes through everything that you created and import it again, you can externally reference that drawing. You just need to go to the tools, external reference, import from project. You can actually also import from another project file if you work with your own files, or you can just go here and select a DWG file. Let's just go with the second one, and let's just open that. The difference between this and the other one will be that it's imported the same way, but when that happens, this you cannot select. You can reference it, you can trace it, but you cannot use it by default, because it's just a reference to a drawing which can be changed, and from time to time, when it changes, it can be updated using the external reference manager. So now I know that one of my colleagues that were working on this drawing, it's just a link to that drawing. I can see the changes, and when I click on reload, and when I click OK, I will see the changes appearing automatically, because then it's reloaded.
Perfect. Let's talk about plot layouts, right? Because that's where everything comes together.
Yeah.
So I think we have a project available, and this is the part that I would like to thank our partner in Belgium, who supplied us with the plot layout and the model that we are going to look at. This is a terraced house in close to Antwerpen, and this is actually one of the scenarios where we could show how joints and connections between structural elements were visualized in ARCHLine.
Yeah, this is a larger project, and you will see that this project already features plot layouts. I just would like to quickly clear up that how to prepare a plot layout, and how those plot layers are actually generated. So what you see here, this is a detailed project with a detailed 3D, all the structures, and as you can see, there are already plot layouts. Now, how any of those plot layouts were created, if you already have a plot layout, and then you go to documentation and add the plot layout, that will be added as a following plot layout, an additional page. But if you are on any sort of other drawings, it will be created as a new plot layout page, a new plot layout document. So now I just would like to add it here, so I enable it first, and then I click on plot layout, prepare plot layout, set up the paper size, set up the paper orientation. If I have a plot stamp, I can use that, and then I click OK, click yes, so it will be a new page. And then I just would like to add details, and this is how it happens. You can just select any sort of drawings, should it be a section or any sort of things that I will show them in detail. I just show you how I place, for example, the ground floor of this drawing in one sort of size, and if it's too large or something like that, I have few options. I can actually crop the content to the drawing, or I can at any time go to the settings of any sort of inserted content and change the scaling later on, change the floor I'm seeing, change the layers I see. So this way, inserting the same drawing in one and the second copy, I can see two different combinations of the same drawing. Just imagine there is the building plan, and there is the electrical plan, and there is the furnishing plan, and there is the tiling plan, all come together from the same 2D drawing by handling the layer combinations. Perfect. So, so this is how it goes, yes?
Could we look at the plot layout again, that one?
Yeah,
just to talk a little bit about the details themselves. So we talked about that there are two kinds of documentation areas in ARCHLine. Yeah. One is those which are still in connection with the drawing, and the others which are not. Now, in this plot layout, everything is still in connection with the drawing. Yeah. But there are certain things that you can or should and should not do on a plot layout. So what do you use the plot layout for? Apart from collecting drawings.
Well, things that you cannot do on a plot layout is those are things that you shouldn't do on a paper in real life. I mean that the paper is representing the drawing, so it's not the building. You shouldn't create the walls here. Those we are in the paper, let's say paper space. So this is where you can add, for example, a text. Or you can add a label or something like that. The only specific thing to the plot layout, when you place all these things, that by default they could be very large. For example, when I just add a text and I say, okay, this text should be, I don't know, this should be like let's just name it 2D drawing something. So if I just click OK, see it's gigantic because I'm using the Arial 200 setting, and the 200 millimeter tall letter is like this on a even next to a large paper. So you need to use different size when you add those details. It's still the same. You can just go here and you can just edit that text. You can say this is ground floor, for example, or something. You can change that. But still, this drawing, as you can see here, it was pasted from this section. As you can see, this is the section C. This is the same content. So if let me just to make it easy, make it clear, I just erase this part. This is a dynamic section. This still contains the window, the walls, and things like that. So if I remove that part, or I move it, or change any sort of other things, this will be updated if I go to the settings and I choose either to refresh this or refresh the whole content of the layout. So I just click here. And I just wait a little bit so it gets updated.
Yes, while it refreshes, something that came to my mind. When you imagine that you have the same kind of designs coming up over and over again. Let's assume that you have like 5 different types of plans that you do. Yeah. Then you don't have to do the documentation for each and every project that comes up. Instead, you could create templates for yourself. The template means the building model and the plot layouts with the sections and elevations. Yeah. So you can open up the project, make the necessary changes which are demanded by the certain project, maybe move the partition walls and things like that. And then you can just refresh the plot layouts and refresh all the views and elevations. You don't have to create everything for every single project but this only works if you have the same kind of.
Well, I think this building could be something like similar. I think this wasn't, but this could be something like that. Just imagine a newly built area of a city where this is kind of a type building, which is built from place to place, all the same, all the same with different layouts. So you just design the one that is kind of the generic, and then you save that project, and all things that you already created will be kept. So you just reopen it, save it, like, I don't know, building 2, building 3, design project, and then you make the changes, update the layouts, and then you can even create, and this is the final thing I would like to show here, and then we can talk about the last topic. You can even build up the print queue. Well, the print queue is something that you can build up a series of pages by simply adding those pages and tell that, well, there should be a ground floor, or there should be any sort of plot layout that I'm about to bring in, and then I can create a multi-page PDF as well. We covered that already, so I don't want to repeat that thing over here, but you can also create the plot layout. And the reason I was showing this, because connecting to that workflow that you mentioned, the print queue is saved with the project. So 1 year, 2 years later, if I open this this project up, I will have the same print queue that I already created.
That's right. Let's talk about the last topic that we have on our agenda, which is about using images and how to vectorize them. Now, tell us a typical scenario when this could be useful.
Well, I think a typical scenario will be something that I'm loading an image for first. And that's usually, many times, that's an archaic building with a lot of surface features that you don't really want to either model or create manual drawing out of that. And this will be something like this here. Now see, there are many surface patterns that when I create a reconstruction drawing, there are things that I would like to create by myself. I can create nice and pretty curves and things like that, but I don't want to draw this surface manually. But if this is a reconstruction drawing, I need to trace it as much as I can.
You can't really use hatches for that, because you need to know the exact line tools.
There is no repeat pattern here. This is all unique. So to trace it, actually there is a tool built in, which after you calibrated the image, we already covered that, how to calibrate the image. Once you calibrated the image, you can use this, and it is found in the drafting raster image and find the edges. There are several versions of this. I will use the general solution, and this allows me to select an image and set up these settings. Many times I just simply go with the default and figure out whether I like the result or not, or I need to fine tweak it or not. So I just click OK, and then the software will just trace the lines. As you can see, it won't trace the curves because they will be broken lines. That's my job to add that detail. But all the rest, like this classic stone pattern, is nicely traced. Let me just make this image a bit dimmer so you see that better. So it looks like this. And now using this line trace, extended with the nice curves that I could create with either the arc, for example. I just go here and I just find that edge over there and this one, and then just align it and then just make copies like offsets, for example. This way I can easily create those nice parts of that.
This way there's still a lot of work involved, a lot of manual work, but at least you get the basics, and you get some representation of the texture, which you cannot achieve with hatches, because that would give you a too artificial look. Basically, that's what we wanted to talk about during this show of detailing. Just to recap the most important things. ARCHLine is able to make the structural levels and layers interact with each other. So it's strongly advised to model things that you want to represent on details. But if there are more difficult things or already existing blocks or details that you want to use, you can use them as well, and you can combine them and put everything up to documentation. And one of the final thoughts that we shared here was to if you build up plot layouts and sections, elevations, you could use them as templates for later work, especially if you work on repeating kind of projects. That's what I wanted to talk about. And we also had a few questions, but we managed to answer them along the way.
And thank you for the questions.
That's right. I would like to give our special thanks to two of our partners who made this show possible, because they helped us with a few questions. They told us what to talk about.
And also with drawings.
Yes, and that is Ornat Design from Belgium and CAD International from Australia. So they helped us a lot with projects that they supplied to us. and the questions that they gave us to help us understand what we should talk about. If, however, you feel that there was something missing or you don't really understand of certain things, get in touch with us.
This is a thick topic, so
yes, get in touch with us and we might consider to have another additional show to this one.
Yeah.
And that's what we're going to talk about today. And the next show is going to be all about openings, doors and windows.
Yeah.
We'll talk about how to handle them, how to work with library elements, how to create your own, how to make customized objects, and how to store beam properties with them. And basically everything that starts and ends with doors and windows and openings.
And we will even talk about how you can turn downloaded objects into doors if you don't want to model them.
It's a frequently asked things that how can I use my existing things, or how can I use things from online libraries?
Yeah.
Now there's going to be an answer there. So again, thank you very much for tuning in. See you next week, and thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you. If you liked the video, please like it,
and
see you
subscribe
next
to our
time.
channel so you would never miss a show like that.
Yeah.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Goodbye.